How's it going, you wonderful people? I'm Jake the Ashen Hollow, and for the first time in a while, we're gonna talk Dark Souls lore. In particular, we're looking at Karla and where that ambiguous witch could have come from. Now obviously there isn't very much info on her at all, but that's pretty commonplace for Dark Souls. So, with the magic of speculation, analyzing what we do know, and a pinch of imagination, I think I've got 3 ideas on who Karla came from. Now, one of the more common theories is that Karla is a shard of Manus. And I believe that's pretty close. I wouldn't say that she herself is a shard, as the shards of Manus have sought out different monarchs for power and other various reasons, and that doesn't really seem to be what Karla is doing. But what if one of those shards had a daughter? Karla said it herself, she's a child of the Abyss, she revels in dark sorceries, not to mention she's the only one that sells the affinity spell, which is the exact same spell from Dark Souls 1 called Pursuers, which we could obtain from Manus' soul. But which shard could she have come from? Probably the most enigmatic one, right? Because that's on par for Karla's personality as well. My best guess would be Alsana. Alsana, in contrast to what we know about other shards, is quite caring in her own right. She remains at her post to contain the chaos that her king tried to stop but couldn't, and urges the player to finish what he started. I'd say by most accounts she's a fairly good person. I don't think it's impossible to believe that the time when Alsana was at the Ivory King's side that they could have smushed booties. From Alsana's soul, you can create Eleum Lois, a sword the Ivory King conferred to her. Similarly, the Dark Edge spell from Karla says that the blade passed from mother to daughter. Now, I'm not saying that these two blades are the same, but perhaps the sentiment and/or tradition is. Take of it what you will, I suppose. Also, for what it's worth, Alsana was closely involved with chaos, and Karla, while being a sorceress, can teach pyromancy. Speaking of pyromancy, the next person up on this list, albeit probably the weakest of theories, but still fun nonetheless, is Quay Lana. Now, a lot of this idea goes back to the fact that Karla can teach pyromancy, and is specifically the only one that can teach you the pyromancies of Quay Lana's tome. The description for Karla's ashes state, "The spurned child of the Abyss never dies, but phases in and out of its fringes, only there is no one to search for her any longer." That's not completely unlike Quay Lana either, except maybe the dying part. But Ingi speaks of a rumor of lost Quay Lana, an inhuman witch who wanders the swamp but no one's ever seen her. And Quay Lana is invisible to the eye until we upgrade our pyromancy flame enough, and even then she's still pretty shocked. Seems like no one could see her or cared to. Kind of like how we find Karla in the Irithyll dungeons. And finally, for what it's worth, both Karla and Quay Lana have the exact same sitting animation and the exact same voice actor. So, you know. Could be a coincidence, could not. As for the father, I'm not too sure at all. Perhaps it could have been Solomon, Quay Lana's first and only pupil, depending on whether or not the Chosen Undead's tutelage was canon. The final pair of suspects, and probably my favorite for frontrunner, is Alva and Zhu Li. They first appeared, well, they didn't appear, but their armor sets did, in Dark Souls 2. In reading various descriptions for Alva's set and the Black Witch set that belonged to Zhu Li, we learned that Alva set off on a mission to find a cure for the sickness of Saint Soretta, and for whatever reason, Zhu Li was constantly trying to sabotage this. But in the end, the two of them fell in love, and during that time, I assumed they had intercourse, because as my wife would say, it's the best way to physically show how much you love someone, and stop talking about your favorite popcorn flavors in bed. You're not helping me get there, Orville Redenbacher. But I don't know. Sorry, I'm not a love guru, Jessica. Anyways, in the Ring City, we're invaded by Alva, Seeker of the Spurned, right before we get to a corpse that has all of Zhu Li's stuff on it. Not a stretch to believe that the corpse is Zhu Li's and that Alva's spirit is defending it. I bring that up because Alva is clearly defending something or someone he cares about. The only other place he invades in the game is when you try to enter Irithyll Dungeon, where Karla is. Now I suppose that means his spirit obviously failed at protecting her from the jailers, but he doesn't intend to fail with the player. As his title suggests, he's the Seeker of the Spurned, and if we look back to Karla's ashes, she is the spurned child of the Abyss. So it seems obvious that Alva at some point went searching for Karla, and likely never found her, but now his spirit seemingly defends her. That seems to suggest some sort of relationship there. As for how Karla would still be a child of the Abyss, I'm not entirely sure. Zhu Li was a black witch, and I assume the black comes from resonating with the dark, so that'd be my guess. My next piece of evidence would be the hat. The description for Karla's hat reads, "A pointed hat is the signature of a heretical sorceress. Karla, however, always kept it close." so it sounds like she has a bit of pride in the hat and or a personal attachment to it. Perhaps it belonged to Zhu Li, who often wore the same manner of hat, a hat whose description says, "The pointed hat is a symbol of heretical magical crafts, and Zhu Li wore hers with an unspoken but deep sense of pride." Could be related, could not. The dark edge sorcery received from Karla says, "A forbidden dark sorcery strikes with blade formed of humanity's darkness. Passed from mother to daughter, this blade was intended for both protection and as a means of taking one's own life. The young girl never swung it more than once." A forbidden dark sorcery is certainly something a prideful, heretical sorceress like Zhu Li would delve into, right? Perhaps she's the mother who passed it to daughter. Perhaps the only time the daughter swung it is the reason she's missing from Alva and her mother. Who can say for sure where our Dark Witch Karla came from? Either way, it's fun to speculate. So let me know down in the comments where you think Karla could have come from. And thank you so much for watching. It felt nostalgic and great to do another Dark Souls video. Maybe there should be more in the future. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and be sure to ring the bell icon for upload notifications. Consider following me on Twitter, and if you've ever wanted to support the channel further, check out my Patreon page. The link for all of this can be found on the screen or in the description below. Peace 'em out!